You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. Along with my awesome co host, we interview the innovators in this space. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hi, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest. We have Andy Bond. Andy, a trained attorney and natural entrepreneur, left a top ranked national law firm to co found a technology startup developing enterprise software for entertainment industry. As vice president and general manager, he led finance operations, intellectual property, and product development while holding executive roles in various subsidiaries. Passionate about teamwork and problem solving, Andy is driven by BestyBnB's mission and help pets and people stay safe, connected, and together. He lives in Kansas City with his wife Claire, their three kids, Jake, Nora, Jane, and Luke, and their two mischievous pups, Maudie and Mabel. He enjoys supporting the kids' pursuits and looks for any available opportunity to spend time in the Colorado mountains. Andy, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Oh, absolutely. Just really happy to be here. Appreciate you both for having me on.
So, by the way of intro, please tell our listeners, what are you up to?
Yeah, thanks. I'll try to keep it the short version. We with together with my co-founder Matt Krentz, who's one of my oldest and a very long time close friend, we built what our agency partners call a confidential and HIPAA compliant Airbnb for pets. It is essentially a crisis care safety net pet advocacy program software that enables human social services agencies and animal welfare organizations to remove barriers that pet ownership can create to accessing services and accessing safety. So we work with all types of social services organizations. So think domestic violence agencies, mental health providers, substance use treatment facilities, housing advocacy groups, veterans advocacy groups, and then also with animal shelters and welfare organizations and communities to build a community-centric platform to find in-home care for pets with trained, loving, and vetted pet caregiver foster homes while that pet owner is receiving services from those agencies.
Wow. How did you come up with this? This is a very noble mission and sounds awesome, but how do you stumble upon the opportunity and how do you make a business out of it?
Stumble upon is perhaps one of the most accurate, descriptions of how we came to this advocacy. This is not in our original background. Matt and I both we met in college, went completely different ways after that. I earned a law degree at St. Louis University. Matt went a little bit different of a direction, being the more creative one. He's a filmmaker and a writer, and Rockhurst, the university we went to, didn't have a film program, so he created his own, went directly to work for Robert Redford at the Sundance organization. And so that's kind of how we thought our relationship would remain. And then in 2013, he and I was looking to get out of private practice to do something a little more creative. He and I helped start another technology company that was building a large piece of technology for the entertainment industry. And so once that platform was acquired, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do next. We had no idea what that was. We just knew we liked building new things and we liked doing that together. And we were listening to our local NPR affiliate here in Kansas City and heard an interview with a person that worked for a domestic violence agency in the Kansas City Metro. And they were asked what the biggest challenges that their agency faced. And it was when they said that 50% of the time that a person calls their hotline wanting to come into shelter to get help and they find out they can't bring their pet, they hang up the phone and are forced to stay in this life-threatening and abusive environment. And it just stopped us in our tracks. It wasn't something that we were aware of as a thing, let alone a crisis. But when we heard it, it made perfect sense. Of course, no one's going to leave their pet behind to get help for themselves if they don't think their pet is going to be cared for or safe. And so we were talking after that interview ended, and finally Matt just said, perhaps looking at this through the lens of technology, we could build something that might help them. The person being interviewed also had given other information that they had raised a substantial amount of money, over $1 million, in an attempt to try to build an on-site animal facility. And that wasn't going to be enough to build it, staff it, and start running it in conjunction with a domestic violence advocacy group for survivors or home for survivors. So I agreed. I ended up packing up my stuff. I was working on a different business plan before that interview happened. And I ended up packing up, driving out to his house. And we started just doing research and kicking around ideas. And we we came up with a concept that ultimately became BestyBnB that afternoon.
That's so cool. Yeah, I got a heck of a lot of questions. I mean, the first burning question I have is like, why wouldn't you make the service accessible for somebody that needs somebody for their a place for their cat to go for the weekend or for the 2 weeks that they're away on vacation? Let's start with that one.
Yeah, wonderful question. Shorter answer is we do. We did build that when we built the Bestie B&B platform. We did build a consumer facing piece of the platform. So somebody traveling for work or vacation that wants an in-home experience for their pet while they're traveling, they can do that. Our focus is on the impact side of Bestie B&B. So we spent a little over a year trying to understand and become educated in the breadth and scope of the crisis so that we could build the platform exactly how these agencies and the case managers and clinicians at all of these organizations would need it to work. From our prior experience, we had built technology for the entertainment industry, and it was a very large piece of technology that had to be ultra secure, but also very user friendly because of the on-set filmmakers were overworked and underpaid and not going to lift a finger to learn something new. When we were doing kind of that year-long listening tour and learning tour, meeting with organizations on both coasts of the United States and everywhere in between, we realized that those advocates are more overworked and in most cases more underpaid. And so we utilized that experience to build something that was custom designed for them. So while we are 100% focused on promoting and getting any agency across the country access to the platform, so they can start removing these barriers for people and pets in their community, at some point, that consumer facing piece will be given a little more love. But right now, we just have that built and ready to go. But our focus is on our agency partners that are, nonprofits doing the hard work on the ground in all of these communities.
Yeah, focus is a valuable tool in a tech startup, as me and Ivan can attest.
Agreed.
Through many learning opportunities. I think that's what we call them. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So,
Yeah, we renamed them from failure opportunities to learning opportunities.
I love it. I love it. I'm taking notes here. I've got to get this into my lexicon.
yeah, it makes tons of sense. So that's really cool. It sounds like you've got a really interesting niche. There's a real interesting and high demand. Who pays the bill?
Also, a great question. So, the pet owner that is in crisis, whether that's a survivor or a patient or someone who is unhoused, whatever crisis they are in, they are never charged by Bestie B&B. So, we are a service that our agency partners provide to those clients. So, we're an extension of the service that they're providing. So, the costs associated with the platform are paid by those agencies.
I hate to ask this question in this turbulent time, but were you affected by the stuff that's going on right now in any shape or form?
What time of day is it? I haven't checked today to see what if up is down or down is up. Yes, I mean it's a volatile time, a lot of uncertainty. The thing that enables us to keep that focus on our mission and our impact is when times are uncertain, the need for our platform is greater. And that's a sad reality of things. In a perfect world, Matt and I would be able to put ourselves out of business with this, and there would be no need for a platform because there wouldn't be survivors fleeing intimate partner violence and those sorts of things. But that's just not the reality. And so it enables us to stay focused. And some of our agency partners who they're certainly nervous. They don't know what if cuts might be coming to some of the public dollars that they rely upon. And it's something that we plan for, knowing that agencies are sometimes subject to ebbs and flows in those. And so one of the things that our partners get when they create a Bestie B&B account is a really robust digital platform with a bunch of assets that they are free to use or free to ignore. It's not something that they are required to do, but it's a lot of things that we tested for engagement, and it's all designed for community engagement and donor engagement. And so, the sad reality is, whether it's sad or not, it's the reality. We were super uncomfortable with saying this at first until some of our leadership and our agency partners said, no, you have to tell this to people because it's true. People will give more money to help a pet facing crisis than they will to a person in crisis. And so what we realized is we have a tool to help those human social services agencies who are now including pets in their service offerings. They can raise more money and access a new donor set. And so they can deepen, engage, and broaden their donor engagement. So our goal is to help them bring more money through their doors than it cost to run their pet program through BestyBnB.
You mentioned that this is a interesting fact that people help more pets in crisis than humans, and we have another dark humor in veterinary medicine going that in a shelter you need to spay, treat for fleas, and amputate the legs because it is more likely for the pet without a leg to be amputated, adopted because they feel sorry about the pet. It's dark humor, but it certainly works that the more pet is kind of needing help, the more people are willing to step in. So, pure entrepreneurial question. This sounds like a very noble idea, very difficult to exit. Is there a future into it? Is that like a life goal, or is there actually a potential to incorporate it into a larger entity or strategic partnership with someone?
Yeah, and that's a really good question as well. We did a really deep dive into what type of entity we should be when we realized that we were onto something, and then got the affirmation from those advocates and leadership at agencies all over the country that this was something that they would use and that they desperately need. So at that point, it was no longer, is this something we're going to do? We really felt a responsibility that now that we know we have a concept that is desperately needed and will be used, we had a responsibility to build it and build it the right way. And so part of that diligence was trying to figure out, should we be a not for profit or should we be a for profit? And we quickly realized that in order to raise the funds that it was going to take to build a solution from scratch that didn't exist until we built it, going a traditional route of raising capital as a for profit and then figuring out the business model that was sustainable with our nonprofit partners was the route to go. So we came up with an innovative approach for that. As far as, and I say that just to kind of set up this answer because it's accurate. It might sound like it's a little wishy-washy and I'm trying to play both sides of the coin, but our model is attractive. And we do believe that through a couple of campaigns that we have running, that at some point we are going to catch the eye of someone as a potential acquisition target just because of the social impact that we have, the real-time data that we can provide about pets in crisis and people in crisis. Nothing that's personally identifiable or anything of that nature, but just getting real access to trends and what's happening in communities. We would never presume that somebody's going to come and make an offer that we can't refuse, or something, an exit is going to happen. But we are confident that will be a target and at least have somebody knocking on that door. On the other hand, if this is something that Matt and I just run and our kids who are not as young as I wish they were still, if it's something that they wanted to learn and get involved in, and this is just what we grow and what we scale, and we hold this closely, that's fine too. So we're a little bit unique as a technology company in that regard, but our focus is the impact and what is the best path to have the most impact. And if that is, an acquisition or some other type of creative merger with someone strategic, so be it. And if it's something that we just run and keep to ourselves, that's fine as well.
Andy, so a bunch of stuff to unpack there. Have you guys raised funds? Where are you at in your journey? And what's usage look like? I mean, all of those questions came up for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. We raised $2.5 million to build the platform from a single investor, which was something that gave us, the runway to make sure that we built that platform the way it needed to be built. We also raised that right before COVID turned the world upside down. And our development shop that we partnered with, who happens to also be based in the Kansas City metropolitan, they were wonderful. It's a group called 27 Global. They do work for a bunch of really large companies. When COVID hit, all those clients kind of said, we have no idea what's going to happen. And so we need to push pause on everything that we're doing until we figure this out. And they had a bunch of really talented technologists that they were worried about losing. And so they, without increasing the cost to us, put 18 resources on our platform. And it cut about 7 months off our development cycle, which enabled us to really stretch those seed dollars to really prove the blueprint of how this platform can work in any community. And so that was our initial raise. We have a small bridge round right now that we're narrowing in on closing. And that's designed to get us to this innovative campaign that we have. It's called Home Away from Harm. And that is a partnership that we have with a national animal welfare nonprofit to be able to go out together and bring dollars in from corporate sponsorships or animal or human philanthropies, corporate philanthropic groups, family offices. All of those contributions through the partnership go to get any agency across the country access to the BestyBnB platform, in addition to a bunch of wraparound services, all designed in education, outreach, and advocacy in the pet and human social services space. So that's kind of one way that we are looking to really amplify our scale and our impact, is through these strategic partnerships with all of these experts in animal well-being and human social services. So that's two parts of the question. Remind me what the third one is so I make sure I answer it correctly.
Yeah, how many pets have you found a place to stay for the night,
Yeah, so we started
or more?
Yeah, we started building this blueprint of how this can work in the community here in Kansas City. So overnight, we turned 7 domestic violence agencies, 3 mental health providers, 2 animal well-being organizations, and a housing advocacy group to being pet friendly. And so we spent some time with those agencies, refining the platform, getting their feedback before we told anybody what we had built besides those agencies. In May of 2023, we were invited by the Humane Society of the United States to their Animal Care Expo, their annual conference. And that was really the first time that we told anybody about what we were doing. Since then, in a completely organic way, we are now working with 51 agencies across 19 different states in both human social services and animal welfare. And then, just in the Kansas City market over the last few months, we are just over 6,000 safe nights that we've provided, that our agency partners have provided through our platform, and 100% of those animals have been returned to their owners. So our return to owner rate is still at 100% since we launched, which we're very grateful for. We're very proud of. We know that won't always be the case, but the agencies have the tools necessary in the unfortunate event where reunification just isn't feasible or possible. We give them the tools to navigate that process and help them with those procedures.
So cool. Amazing. Congratulations on the success so far. Really, really interesting. A bunch of veterinarians listen to our podcast, and corporate partners and corporate consolidation groups. How can the veterinary community get behind what you guys are doing and help amplify what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to work with some really great folks in the veterinary space, veterinarians, vet techs, and others. And it's really been humbling and really inspiring to see those folks gravitate towards our platform and realize that it's a way for them to help, to further help and increase the impact of good that they're doing for pets and pets owners in their community. And so, we heard a lot of stories on that learning tour that we took, talking to veterinarians who said, I'll try to reserve a bed for a dog or a cat if available, if I know it's in crisis. So they would kind of have this type of pet advocacy going on an ad hoc, one-off basis with a local domestic violence agency or another organization. That's not their core mission, and oftentimes, if they had a need for space, but they didn't have space, they felt like they would tell us they felt like there's just not enough that they could do. And so what our platform does is enable them to help those agencies. So now that outreach from someone in crisis isn't coming directly to that veterinarian. They could reach out to say, hey, through our BestyBnB pet advocacy program, we have a pet that came in with a client, not sure if it's up to date on vaccines, or it was from an abusive situation, and that pet also was subjected to abuse and needs some medical attention. A lot of times veterinarians in those communities where we're working, will offer low cost or discounts for those services, or donate, a handful of vaccine updates on a monthly or quarterly basis, something like that. So it's a way for them to help those human social services agencies run their pet advocacy program and increase that pet's health and amplify that pet owner's experience with their pet. And that pet owner is going to get that pet back when they're ready, and that pet is going to need veterinary care. And so it's also a way for them to continue a relationship with that pet and that pet owner. Another way that it helps in communities, we have a lot of vet techs who are pet caregivers in our pet caregiver network. They have a unique expertise in caring with pets and caring for pets that perhaps have experienced trauma. And so we have a lot of people that come in. There's a place on our application process to say if you are in the veterinary space and what your role is. You get a little badge on your profile. So when an administrator is at an agency is looking through the pet caregivers who have signed up to work with those agencies, they can see, okay, this person's a vet tech, might be well suited for this pet's needs. That caregiver never knows the identity or location of that pet owner in crisis, and vice versa. That's part of the HIPAA compliance and regulatory compliance and just safety that the technology affords to our agency partners. But they know they're helping a pet that's in need. They know that pet is going to be reunited with their owner. And if they choose, they can charge a fee for their services. So they can donate their services to our agency partners. They can charge a fee. If they charge a fee, they keep 100% of that. So it really is kind of a job creation or a revenue creation model. The agencies, part of what that extra fundraising enables them to do is to have a budget to compensate those people if they choose to. And so, we leave that up to those parties. We don't participate in that in any way. But it's been a really effective way to make kind of all ships kind of rise on the same high tide. Our veterinarians share with us. They share with things that they're seeing, things that they think would be beneficial for feature enhancements of the platform. So it's probably easier to say how veterinarians don't help us as opposed to how they do. And we just feel really humbled to be in that position.
Amazing.
That's really cool. You just increasingly positively changed my opinion about the lawyers and what their journey is. You're one of those.
I'm a recovering lawyer, so don't you got to put that people are gonna turn this off immediately if they're like, oh, they've got one of those stinking attorneys on here. So I'm recovering, and
I
luckily,
know a couple of lawyers that call themselves that, and they're truly good people. Yeah, so I admire what you do. At the end of the episode, we always ask two things. One of them is their TED Talk, YouTube video, a book that inspired you recently, and you would like to share with the listeners.
yeah, I just finished the episode on the Acquired podcast on the history of Mars Inc. And there's a lot of talk about how they got into the Mars Pet Care division and got into pet in general. And it's just really fascinating. It was recommended to me. I was having breakfast with a fellow entrepreneur, and he recommended it. And it just so happened that we were just getting ready to travel to Nashville to meet with some folks from Mars Pet Care and a couple of their divisions. And so I thought, oh, what great timing. And then I looked it up and it said like 4 hours. And I was like, holy cow, I don't know if I can get through this and before these meetings. And I listened to about the first 90 seconds. And then the next thing I knew, it was 4 hours later and it was over. So it's really awesome. You don't have to be in pet space it's a wild ride. And then the part about the pet care division and how that came to be was really fascinating. And we just have a lot of respect for the people we know in that ecosystem. And so it was a good listen.
Yeah, we've heard other people talk about that before. I've got to check it out. Last question, Andy. Another innovator in the veterinary space that you think we should have on the show?
There is a wonderful organization based in Kansas City called Prosperity. Formerly, it was before they rebranded, it was the KC Grooming Project. And this organization, it's a school. They teach the art of grooming to folks that are in crisis. So mostly, single mothers or abuse survivors or people who experienced another hardship, whether it was housing advocacy or a number of those things. And they bring them in. Housing is provided if needed. And it's a curriculum that accelerates the art of grooming, teaching them that. And so they graduate with a very nice skill set to be able to either go to work in a salon or start their own business and groom pets and really help create and maintain financial stability for those students. And so we've been fortunate enough to meet Natasha, their CEO, and work with some of their graduates and some of their students and go in and be part of their curriculum. And I think they are onto a really unique model. And I have a hunch that communities outside of the Kansas City metropolitan will be able to take advantage of their services as they expand in the near future. So I'm happy to provide you with some contact information. But Prosperity in Kansas City, if any of your listeners want to look it up and kind of check out the model, it's really inspiring.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.